CDOT, also known as Colorado Department of Transportation, is spearheading a campaign about driving under the influence of marijuana in partnership with the marijuana industry, public health, and law enforcement. With more, we're joined by Sam Cole and Traffic Safety Communications Manager at CDOT and Shannon Fender, Director of Public Affairs at Native Root. I'm so glad you guys are here.
Thank you.
I love talking about this with you. I know, Sam, we've talked about this before, so let's do this. In 2014, you actually launched the Drive High, Get a DUI campaign. So how have you made progress with that?
Well, that campaign, Drive High, Get a DUI, was really successful because now over 90% of marijuana users know they can get a DUI for driving high. The problem we've had since that campaign is a lot of marijuana users don't understand the dangers. Consistently, we see every year 20% of marijuana users reporting to us that they drive under the influence of marijuana. And that coincides with the data we're getting from State Patrol. 20% of the DUIs in the state include marijuana. That's a huge concern.
Right, absolutely. So last year, you actually began the Cannabis conversation. Now remind viewers what that was.
So the Cannabis conversation was to kind of take a look at why people are driving high, asking marijuana users across the state, do you think you're not going to get caught by law enforcement? Do you not understand the dangers? So we went ahead and we did this basically a statewide focus group. We've got 10, 20,000 people telling us about their beliefs and assumptions around driving high. So we got some really, really good information. We also partnered with the marijuana industry, law enforcement, public health to really get a robust set of feedback about this problem.
So what have you learned then from Coloradans?
Yeah, so one thing that marijuana users told us is that if you are a daily marijuana user, you're much more likely to drive under the influence than if you are somebody that just partakes maybe once a week or once a month. We've also learned that passengers rarely speak up for some reason if they're riding in a car where somebody is under the influence. We've also heard that marijuana users want us to provide them with empirical information that gives them more and better information about the law because they really don't find the law, the policies that the state has around punishments around DUI to be convincing. So they want better information.
Totally understand that. And before we get to Shannon, what are your goals this year, Sam?
So the goal of the Cannabis conversation this year is to really actually test 3 different ad concepts to see which one will move behavior change the best. And so you can go to our website, we'll give you the link at the end, to actually take the survey, look at the different ad concepts, and tell us which one you think will move behavior, get people to really understand the dangers the best.
I love this. And now, Shannon, let's go to you. I love that your 2 groups are actually working together. This is so important. So Native Roots comes into play here. We're talking about this. What kind of big takeaways would you say you've actually garnered from the CDOT's campaign?
Yes, thank you so much. What we have really found out from participating in the cannabis conversation is that a lot of industry may be hesitant to join in. I think a lot of that comes from the stigma that, we may be bullied by law enforcement, or, it may be concerning to walk into that conversation and be the only person in the room. So we really want to make sure that our fellow industry participants know that they can, come into this conversation respectfully to talk about cannabis impaired driving and how we can prevent it.
So really, that's kind of, is that your hope then in your role in this whole campaign, is just to drive the conversation, obviously, to health and safety?
Yes. We as dispensary owners and operators have a really unique opportunity to meet the consumer and the patient at the point of sale to have that conversation. It's different having that conversation with us than with having that with law enforcement or having that from a regulatory agency with the state. And so we want to be a part of the solution to carry that message forward.
Now, this may seem like a silly question, but I think it's one that comes up a lot when we start talking about cannabis in general, and that is the difference between marijuana use and then edibles. Can you explain that a little bit?
Sure. So edibles are a product, a marijuana product that you can consume, and it's different than smoking it, vaping it, that sort of thing, and that it can take much longer for the effects to impact you. And so, in particular to this conversation, if you take an edible and you wait a couple hours and you think that it hasn't worked, you still probably want to not drive because that could sneak up on you while you are driving and put you in an unsafe situation.
See, that's great advice and something that I think the conversation needs to continue so people start to understand that a little bit better. So one of the deterrents, Sam, what would you say, maybe the 2 common deterrents that a lot of people have, really against driving under the influence at all?
Well, we have to have a robust law enforcement program, and we do. Actually, more law enforcement across the state are trained to identify and impair driving by marijuana than ever before. So that is a huge deterrent, and I think marijuana users need to understand that, as well as the fact that a DUI in the state can cost you upwards of $15,000.
Yeah, it's expensive. So quickly before we go, demographic differences. We're talking really age groups here, right?
Yeah. Well, it's the same sort of thing. We find crash rates involve men and younger men the most, and that's why, not surprising, it's younger men that tell us that they are more likely to drive under the influence of both marijuana and alcohol.
Gotcha. Guys, this is so important. Thank you for joining us. Join CDOT's Cannabis Conversation. Users and non-users, you are encouraged to take CDOT's online survey. Visit ColoradoCannabisConVo.com. Now, here's that web address again, ColoradoCannabisConVo.com. They paid for today's segment.